It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.
Welcome to Dialogues with Dan, heard on Rockland World Radio every Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to check out the archives of past programs, which are located off the menu bar. And now the host of Dialogues with Dan, Mr. Dan Windheim.
Oh, thanks, Richard. Hi, everyone. This is Dan, and of course, we have a live one tonight. That's my key lingo phrase. We got a live one. I'm speaking with a high school friend, Nancy Young Taylor from New Jersey. No,
Westchester.
I'm sorry. I stand corrected. From Westchester. I'd like to introduce Nancy Young Taylor. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Oh, very good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy you could join us. And tonight, we're speaking about, well, I know you've been dealing with some issues over the years, and I'd like to focus on how you've lifted yourself out of this situation and how you've been able to continue life. And life is good.
Life is good.
It is. So maybe we could start with you, Nancy, talking a little about your life maybe years ago and how you've progressed, and a little about your physical situation.
Okay. Well, we grew up here in Rockland. It was a great place to grow up, and I grew up loving sports. That's how I met my husband. You know, I met him in 6th grade, and he used to play football in my backyard, Mark Taylor. And I was always just playing something, you know, baseball with Lynn Conklin across the street, or just, you know, we loved gymnastics, and I played basketball and soccer and all kinds of different things. I just love sports. I was always busy and kept busy. And, you know, throughout my life, I stayed with softball. I played wherever I went on co-ed teams, or, you know, teams with work, wherever I worked. And I got married in 1990, and I started kind of getting headaches, really bad headaches. And I tease my husband all the time that it all started when I married him. But I just kind of got progressively worse. I started with a really bad headache and TMJ, and I just got very, very sick throughout the years. I had a 23-year migraine, all kinds of issues. And I don't know. I ended up having my daughter.
Yes. Over these years, you went to see doctors and you got different advice.
Yes.
And tried changing diet.
Right. I was so sick. I started going to the Best of Everyone in New York. I was seeing all kinds of different doctors, rheumatologists. You know, everybody was telling me I had fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. And back then, I don't think many people believed in fibromyalgia. Most doctors didn't. And they just kept putting me on all kinds of different drugs for this, that, and the other thing. And it was just making it worse and worse and worse. And It just kept getting progressively worse as time went on.
Did you try massage and maybe chiropractors?
Not in the beginning. The beginning, I was led to believe, I think like most people, that you could find a doctor that could fix everything. And it took quite a while and quite a lot of disappointing endings with doctors to figure out that I think the best kind of doctors are doctors that were MDs that then became holistic. And I really started branching into Eastern medicine, and I did a lot of acupuncture, and I did a lot of massage. And actually the first person that really helped me the most was a nutritionist. named Dina Cotter, and she put me on a shake diet. I didn't eat any food at all, and I drank these shakes to, it was like a detox thing. And I actually started to feel a little bit better because I had lost my cognitive skills at one point. I couldn't even think straight. I didn't know how to stand on a line, or I couldn't remember to open the door when my daughter's kindergarten bus came. It was really terrible. Mark had to stop work, and I was having a really hard time functioning in life. And so that helped a little bit. And that started me thinking, okay, I need to go a little bit different direction with healthcare.
Yeah, this must have been very disconcerting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you were forgetting things and not able to live your life, did you have like different strategies? Maybe writing things down.
I had things, sticky notes and things written on my hands and beeping watches and alarms, and nothing worked. I was a disaster. I was in a ton of pain. My face would swell over. My eyes were always glazed over. I was completely, I had complete brain fog. It hurt to walk on my feet. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was very, very, very sick. My hair was falling out. My eyelashes were falling out. I had chronic shingles. I was a mess. Yeah, I was a mess for quite a while.
And let it be known, Nancy and I haven't spoken, really seen each other over the years. So it's not my fault. But you didn't, through a doctor, you were directed to stem cell therapy?
Yeah, right. I finally found a doctor who, was an MD for years. Then he became a holistic doctor. He was very old, I think in his late 70s. And he was the first doctor that sat down and spoke with me and asked me just normal questions. So what did you do when you got married? Oh, you went fishing a lot? And he said, let me put you on this computer for a minute. I want you to take a test. And he showed me circles on a computer, and all I had to do was say the stripes were going up and down, diagonal, or I couldn't tell. And I took this test, and he said, you were poisoned, right off the bat. And I'm like, what? And no doctor sits down and talks to you about your life or anything else. It was bizarre. And he is the first person that figured out I was poisoned. And it turns out I had mercury poisoning. I was probably poisoned by pesticides, and I had Lyme's disease. And even though I was tested a million times, all of that went undiagnosed for 13 years, and all the tests that they gave me came out negative. So all that did so much damage to my body that then I became autoimmune, and I have a rampant virus that has no name. My autoimmune disease doesn't have a name, but it's a disease of inflammation. So my brain, my spinal cord, my organs, my face, my hands, they get inflamed, blow up, and it's kind of crazy. So that's not good.
And so once this
not a plus.
Started going, everything started to unravel.
Well, pretty much. I spent almost my whole life when my kids were growing up going to doctors, and they were doing IV treatments to clean my blood and to oxygenate my blood. And my blood under a microscope was disgusting. It was stagnant. I was reproducing, misformed cells, and it was just horrifying. So I just did tons and tons and tons of all different kinds of IV treatments, and that made so much difference. You can't believe it. It was absolutely amazing, but it still wasn't getting me to where I needed to be. So they did do the Lyme treatment for years, and I did do all the IV treatments, and we got rid of most of the mercury poisoning. And then I kind of came to a standstill, and that's when my last doctor suggested stem cells.
Let me ask, what kind of doctor was it who said you were poisoned?
He was an MD, but also into homeopathic medicine.
Yes.
He was really interesting. His name was Warren Levin. He was fantastic. I think he's one of the group of people that totally saved my life.
Yes.
He was amazing.
But then the stem cells came after.
Right. He moved his practice to Arizona. I then started to go see a doctor named George Zabrecki and Marcy Walensky Friedland, and these two people totally have helped me a ton. Again, I think they were part of the people that saved my life. My back doesn't stay in place ever. My muscles spasm so bad sometimes they would break my ribs, but my bones don't usually stay aligned. And I was having a lot of issues and pain, and he suggested stem cells because he knows a group of people in Panama City who were doing fantastic treatments for people. Mostly, they didn't really want me. They wanted people that had something with a name. Like they were working with autistic children and very much with people with MS. But I have something in common with that because of inflammation. So that's why they decided to take me. And, my doctor said I had a 50-50 shot. So I went to Panama because I had nothing to lose. And I did this treatment, which, not so easy. And but it was fantastic. I left there probably 50-60% better. It was incredibly amazing.
Yes. And this is the Panama City Stem Cell.
It's a Stem Cell Institute in Panama.
Yes.
Yeah, you could look it up on the web.
Panama City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I visited what they're doing, and they're really amazing.
Absolutely incredible.
I saw a video of a young man who who's paralyzed from, I forget which vertebrae, on his neck down. He was paralyzed, and he had stem cells, and then they showed he was moving his foot up and down. I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah, so many people there were in wheelchairs and were running around. Everybody, virtually everyone that I met with MS who was in a wheelchair was now walking. I saw two boys that were both very young. They had the same name, I think Brad or something. One came from Alaska and one was from somewhere else, I can't remember. One had an extreme motorcycle accident and the other had a snowmobile accident, and they were both paralyzed from the waist down. And every day we went for treatment, they would say, I could feel this much more of my back or 6 more inches down my leg. And the most incredible thing that I witnessed was a young boy who came all the way from South Korea to Panama, and he was autistic, and I saw him for the first couple days, and he didn't make any words. He made a lot of noises and things like that, and we both had our first treatment on the same day, and the next day I saw him come up to his father and say, "Where were you, Daddy?" And I just started crying. It was just incredible after one treatment, and you'd see unbelievable things. I mean, a person who had MS said that he took his wife back after this treatment, and in 15 minutes she was moving her foot, in 20 minutes she was moving her leg, in an hour she was moving both legs. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, Nancy, how is stem cells administered?
Well, and it's different for everybody, but for me, they have to do a 1 pound liposuction from your stomach, which is extremely painful and awful. And they take these cells, they take your stem cells out of your own fat. They grow them in like a petri dish with certain, there's special sauce, I call it. They let them grow and multiply, but they don't let them get too big. Then they take them out and freeze them. And they put them back into you via, injection. And those were great. But the best ones, the very strong ones, are called CD34s. Excuse me. And they are taken from umbilical cord blood that's donated by Panamanian women. And of course, it's screened like 1 billion times by everybody. And this cord blood is injected into your spine with a needle that you wouldn't believe how big this needle was. I'm not afraid of anything, and this needle made me sweat.
Yes.
It was very big. And you do it while you're awake. You sit down in a very sterile, freezing cold room. An anesthesiologist just, they cover your back with Benadine, and they put plastic, like paper on your back, and they feel between your vertebrae, and they inject it right in there. And it's just a disgusting thought, but it really doesn't hurt that badly. And you go back to a hotel room or wherever you're staying, you lay down for 3 hours, you have to drink 3 quarts of water and try not to move. And a lot of people get a very severe headache, if you're prone to headaches especially. But, that was one of the treatments. So every day I did a IV and then, or a push, and then once I got the shot in the back. So that was my...
Oh, I'm so glad. I mean, great for you.
So great for me. I was thrilled. I mean, I used to get on a plane, and I was also very chemically sensitive. So if my neighbor sprays their lawn, my heart will start pounding. I could taste it in my mouth. If I go to buy a plant in a nursery, if they sell fertilizer, the same thing happens to me. I could taste things in my mouth. They call people like me canary in a coal mine because I sense things like way before you. You're still smelling it and you're still being affected by it, but I can detect it before you can. And it gets me very, very, very sick. And getting on a plane for me was awful because by the time I got off a plane, I was so severely sick that they needed to take me into a special room when I landed in Panama. I was that out of it. When I flew home after my treatment, I was completely 100% fine. I had energy. I could go up and down stairs. I could move my hands. I was bending down. Nobody could stand to be near me. I was so happy.
So have you shared this information with friends, strangers,
everybody,
hospitals?
Well, I went into my son. My son was taking biology at the time. And they were studying stem cells, so I did 4 classes at Horace Greeley High School. Everybody that I see, I talk about it. I've told people to contact me if, you ever wanted to talk about things.
Yes.
My doctor shares my name with people.
Yeah, would you say anyone listening for them to contact Nancy Taylor?
You could, yeah. My email is beanwest, BEAN West, WEST, at AOL.com. Again, it's so new and I'm really like part of a study, but they have had so much success. And obviously not everyone can be cured. A lot of people ask me, can it cure cancer? Can it do this? Can it do that? You can contact the Stem Cell Institute directly and email them and ask them questions, but I've seen some pretty incredible things, and if you have MS or MS especially, I know that it's amazing. But I know that I know they're doing a study with autistic kids because they're having great results with stem cells.
That's fantastic. Yes, I'd like to ask you about the impact on your family. We spoke a little about your children and Mark. Maybe you could share the good, maybe not so good.
Yeah, well, the not so good is, there were days that I just felt absolutely horrible. And I mean, the pain was just wicked. I had a migraine for 23 straight years. It never went away. Everything just hurt. And, to raise 2 kids, I just feel sad because I probably would have been a much better mother if I was healthy. I would be running around with them more. But I did everything I could to make it as normal as possible. I would take big containers of snow inside the house and line the table and bring out all the cookie cutters and things, and we'd build mini snowmen. And, I just did everything I could to try to make it normal. I never once spent a day in bed, but I'm sure it's hard. It's hard to keep going. I was really afraid that my kids would be afraid because I grew up worrying that my father was going to die because he was very sick, and my father did die. He died of complications of diabetes because he got it very young. So he died when I was 8 years old. So we were talking about motivation before. That was my motivation. Like, I was not going to die because I was not going to let my children go through that pain ever that I went through. And my poor husband, I mean, he deserves a medal because it's not easy being with a sick person. I'm sure, we both grew up together. We like to do sports. I'm sure he would like it if I was playing golf with him and tennis with him. And, I can't ski anymore. I can't really do anything anymore except for walking. So,
and you do.
I do.
4 miles a day?
I try to do 4 miles a day. You know, in the winter it gets a little trickier because the cold kind of makes me stiff and achy. But, you know, I try to do other things like go to a gym and, you know, walk on a treadmill or something, you know.
Yes. What are the chances that one day you could go to work in some capacity? Well,
I don't
you
know.
actually, you are doing some good things.
Yeah, I do. I don't, for a long time, I never would have been able to have a job because I might be great for 3 days and then not be able to move for 2 days, or maybe I'd be sick. My immune system is very, very weak, so I'm always sick. I was sick. I had 5 viruses last winter. I was sick this past week with a sinus infection. So, you know, I don't think I would be the best person to hire for a 9-to-5 job, but I do a ton of charity work. I work with a bunch of different organizations, so I get very involved in that. I work with the All-Stars Project and among other ones. And I also teach stained glass to the senior center in Mount Kisco. So I teach a class there every Monday. So that's really nice. And
Awesome.
I keep very busy. I have 3 dogs and, you know, I'm running around with my kids. And I don't really sit still too often, but...
No. Yeah, Nancy, when you see other people who are struggling or who are disabled or challenged, what does it make you think of? Or
Well, it's kind of twofold. First of all, I feel bad because I understand where they're coming from. You know, I was kind of new in my town when this happened to me, and when I lost my cognitive skills, I appeared just completely stupid. I couldn't think. I lost the ability to think. So there were people that were very nice to me, and there's a lot of people that were very not nice to me. And you realize that people don't have a lot of patience for people that aren't smart. You know, I didn't know how to stand on a line. I mean, everything was a struggle. And you know what? You should really be nice to people that aren't smart because it's so much harder to be stupid than it is to be smart. And so I look at people and I feel sorry for them in one way, but I think people that have disabilities, and you would know this way better than me too, we both understand, we have the ability and the gift of being able to appreciate all the little things in life that I think healthy people overlook. You know, I can be so moved just by like trees and rocks and looking, you know, playing with my dogs and, you know, something I don't have to be out there doing, I don't know, playing sports, I guess. But you appreciate like the little things in life, and they become very important to you.
right. And how do you think society, like what you said, well, I'll say it again. How do you think society handles people who might be different or
I think it's
not?
Yeah, I don't. You know what? I think it's getting better. I mean, as a whole, I don't think it's very great yet, but I do see hope with you know, autistic kids, and not even so much autistic. I mean, let's just say people with disabilities. I see them in the workplace more. I see them working in stores. I saw a TV show the other day where a man opened a restaurant because his son was in a wheelchair, and he hired, you know, 50% of the people were disabled. And I think, you know, the world has to understand that, you know, disabled people are a part of it, and we need to help them and make it work.
Yes. And in our last minute, like, or few minutes, like you couldn't see that you were sick or you had something going on. You know, so you would say people should, you know, not be judging of others.
Never.
And always ask, could I help you? Or do you need help?
Right. Instead of judging a person right off the bat, you should really assess the situation and try to put yourself in that person's place and see maybe what they're going through and how you could, you know, help them emotionally or physically or anything. You know, just be a friend, because it's really hard. It's lonely. Like, it's really a lonely place when you don't feel well and you're in miserable pain all the time and nobody understands it. It's very lonely because you can't really explain it until you are in that much pain 24/7. I used to go to bed in pain. I would wake up before I was even conscious. There were tears coming down my eyes because it was just so, I was always in that much pain. And people don't understand. It's tough.
Yes. I imagine your kids have a great empathy toward others.
I don't know. I always wonder. Part of my kids, I think, worried about me a little bit. But I tried not to let that happen, but I'm sure they must have. But the other part of them, this is where I worry, is they're so used to seeing me like in the hospital or in the emergency room or on the floor because I can't get up or something that they almost became like, used to it. And I remember once my muscles went into spasm. I fell on the floor and I managed to crawl up onto a bar stool and I was hunched over and they both kissed me goodbye and went to school. And I'm like, oh my God, get your father. But they were so used to all these weird things happening to me so I worry that sometimes maybe they won't pay attention to others. I don't know. We'll see how that happens in the future.
That must have been a very not funny situation.
Well, you know what? You have to laugh. I mean, I guess while you're going through it, it's not funny, but sometimes you laugh through things. I mean, you have to because it's so depressing that you have to keep laughing. And a lot of it is kind of funny when you think about it,
It sounds like something you might see on Saturday Night Live.
Exactly. That's kind of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, so my producer should be in here in the next seconds.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'd like to thank you, Nancy Young Taylor, for joining me on Dialogues with Dan.
Thanks, Dan. It's great to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. And, well, everyone, have a great week. And this was Nancy Taylor. Peace.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.